Umoja 2 TV. I'm Coach Dan. He is a former Gillen High School standout, St. Rose All-American, pro overseas, playing basketball overseas in Europe. He's a trainer for his own organization, his own program, Dags Basketball. He also is a USA basketball trainer. Now, I probably missed a few of your accomplishments there, but you can add them on a little later. But out of those five that I just mentioned, Coach Dags, which one of those five accomplishments brings you the most joy as you sit back and think about over the years?
Yeah, it's crazy. So when I was playing, I played at Gillen High School, I played 3 years of varsity and then was earned a scholarship at St. Rose, became a two-time All-American there, and then played 5 years professionally in Europe, in Spain, Italy, Hungary, Iceland, and England. So some really good leagues. And so I used to get the question while I was playing over there, it's like, if you could go back to anywhere and play, where would you play? And I just always go back to being in high school with the kids you grew up with. I would, if I could go back to the sectionals my senior year and play even one of those games over, whether it was Hudson Valley, Glens Falls, or the championship, man, that was the best because everything was fresh and new. You're with your boys, you know what I mean? So I've been lucky enough to play really well and have a good career in college, and then also, overseas and live in some great places. But I think I'd go back to the high school years, and go back with my boys.
Yeah. I remember I was coaching with CBA one year, and you and your brothers on the team in the Hudson Valley. I think the game, I know it went to overtime. It did, yes. And
yeah.
Either you or your brother hit this long bomb. I was like, holy crap. But you guys were balling that year, man. You guys were getting it in.
Yeah, that was funny, man. I remember that game. It was towards the end of the year, and I wasn't playing that much, and somebody got injured in double overtime, and Coach Rosinski's like, hey, you're going to go in and shoot the foul shots. I'm like, I've been sitting here for 2 hours not doing anything, man. So, that was a great game.
Yeah, it was. All right. So, so give me something memorable at each level though now. I mean, you talked about the high school. Give me a memorable play or something somebody said to you, or something you said to somebody else, or a move or something that you did at each level at St. Rose and then overseas.
Yeah, so at St. Rose, I think my biggest thing, two things would be, so when I was getting recruited out of Guilderland, I was 5'11", 100, literally 135 pounds. Nobody was looking to give me a scholarship. And so my dad was sending out all my highlight tape, actual tapes at that time, and resume to all the Division IIIs, Division IIs, Division Is in the Northeast. And so he sent it to every school in the Northeast 10 Conference, which is the conference that St. Rose is in. One got back to me, St. Rose. Yeah. And after my sectional run, they offered me a full scholarship, and I ended up going there. And so in my memory is, and I tell this to all of our players too, is literally all 16 schools said no. They didn't even say no. They didn't even respond. And then I become the two-time MVP and a two-time first-team All-American in that league, right? So I always go through that with our players too. We have this thing in our mind where these college coaches who are evaluating, they know all. They're the evaluators. A lot of times they're guessing just like everybody else. You know what I mean? So it's, you do the right things and good things keep happening. The other thing with St. Rose too was one of my rejection letters when my dad was sending out all the film was from Binghamton. I literally remember, I still have the letter where it said we think you're a good player, but we recruit Atlantic 10 type players who don't end up getting Atlantic 10 type scholarships and fall to the America East. That's what we're sticking with, whatever. So I was pissed at the time. It is what it is. Our first exhibition game my freshman year was against Binghamton, and we beat them at Binghamton. They opened a new arena. They had a 7-footer. Our big man was Adonis Barber, who's 6'3" from Schenectady, who was a beast, and he killed the 7-footer. It was crazy. And so I remember sitting there after the game and being that level, the low Division I level compared to the high Division II, there isn't really a difference at all. So those would be my two college. Those would be my two college memories. Professionally, I'm trying to think. Probably when I was playing in England, it was the best year I had. I was a BBL Cup MVP, so they do a mid-season playoff, and our team won it in front of 8,000 fans in Birmingham. I set the tournament record for threes. I was 8 for 10 from three, and then 35 points, which actually the 35 points got beat the next year. But it was cool, man. It's a typical professional, like you're popping champagne, like going out after the big win. It was cool. So that's probably my best moment playing overseas.
Yeah, man, you got a lot of information to share to kids, man. I tell you that.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you had something to offer to your students or your players from a trainer perspective? When did you realize that, hey, maybe I could go this route here and really I got something to offer to these guys?
Yeah. So back in like 2004, when I left high school to college, there wasn't trainers. I had just gone to a whole bunch of different camps, like 5-star and Eastern Invitational, and like you'd get these guys saying, hey, if you want to work on your game, it's every day. Here's what you do, right? And they're just telling you what to do. So I kind of made a commitment to myself, ninth grade in high school, and said, listen, I'm going to do something every single day. I'm going to be super small. So I did boxing. I figured out how to put myself through shooting workouts, ball handling workouts, all that stuff. So I was basically like training myself all through high school and then all through college, where some of my teammates would hop in on the drills too. So when I graduated college, I'm like, I'm so small, like 5'11", 155, that like, if I could do the same thing I did for myself with other players who are more physically and athletically gifted than I am, I mean, I should be able to help these guys. So we started out with like, I think my first year out of college, I did 2 groups, like of 4 kids each. And then the following year, Shen and Scotia, Coach Dezikis and Coach Gemite, were like, I was talking to them and they were like, yo, we'll hire you for the summer. And no high schools were bringing in a trainer. Like they barely do it now, but I had good relationships with them. My dad, who was coaching at Mohan at the time, was like, I don't want to be the first one to hire you because I don't want people to think that I'm giving you a job. So I didn't even work with his team the first summer. It was Shen and Scotia. And, fast forward a year or 2 years, Shen and Scotia are winning state championships, not because of anything that I did, but because they have coaches that realize like, hey, kids don't want to hear my voice 12 months out of the year. Let me find somebody that's saying the same thing that I'm saying. And then they're just hearing a different voice. So once that hit and Shen and Scotia started killing, then it opened up our team training. We've trained almost like every high school team in the area. And then it opened us up for bigger camps and smaller groups and things like that.
Yeah. I noticed that about you, man. You've been out there on the grind doing it.
Yeah.
And I seen one time during this COVID, I think it was one school wasn't able to use their gym out there practicing outside. Yeah. And I noticed that you put a tweet like, yo, I got a gym. You guys come on down here, man. You know what I
mean? I have 2 gyms. So I own a gym with Julie McBride in Troy that her and I both utilize for our own programming. And then I lease a gym in Schenectady, an old Boys and Girls Club. And I saw that tweet and I was just like, yo, so you're going to let them play, but you're not going to let them use the gym. Then they're going to be outside. And I'm like, yo, so they ended up like starting their games like the next day or something like that. So they didn't need it. I wish I knew earlier, but I think that just goes back to when I first started, it was a lot about like proving myself as a trainer, that I knew what I was doing, that I could help these kids, all of that. And then now, you mentioned the USA basketball stuff. I mean, I'm literally with the top high school players in the country and the top high school coaches and skill development guys in the country 3 times a year. And so my goal is kind of shifted to like, how can I have the biggest impact on these players without asking for anything in return, right? Like me making Kevin Herter a better player, that doesn't make me a better trainer. Like Kev's going to be fine either way. You know what I mean? Like Joe Cremo, like even the young kids, like how do I impact them and pour into them without, again, asking for anything in return or trying to take credit for anything that other people do. So that's kind of where my mindset's at now.
Yeah. And you see a lot of that. People always trying to take credit for it. But I think that also, the kids know, you know what I mean? You don't have to toot your own horn. You know what I mean? The kids know what it is.
And once you're done playing for a while, to be honest, like nobody cares anyway. Like these kids don't care. They don't care. So it is what it is.
That's right. All right. So so you're at Dags. When a student or a player goes to Dags training, what do they expect to learn? What is the parent gonna expect to get out of a Dags environment?
Yeah, so it depends. Like when you really look at our training, it's different levels of stuff. So like we have our camps. So our youth camps are all about just having fun and building passion for the game. I think so much of this now in youth sports, you're trying to make these kids professionals when they're in like 6th grade. And, you know, I've done it for 12 years. So I've seen the progress of like these kids get in high school or they're good enough and they go to college and they just don't want to play anymore. Like, yo, it's not fun. They never built that passion of just having fun playing the game. So we do a ton of stuff to try and build the kids having fun, but also learning how to be competitive and hold themselves accountable. So it's more like life skills, right, at our camps. Our small group training, which we offer full year round, that'll be a little more intense. With the youth players, it's still competitive, but in a fun atmosphere, and there's a ton of teaching going on. When you get up to high school, you know, I go back and forth in this, like my philosophy's changed over the years. The game's never been more skilled. You look at the NBA, you know, and you got big men shooting, handling, all that. Like, skill isn't the problem. The problem is competitiveness. So all these players, they're not, I mean, you know, when you were growing up, you'd go to the park and there'd be 20 kids or 20 guys there, and like, you lose, you're out for 2 games. So naturally you're building that competitiveness. Now everybody's going to training and it's like, yo, I'm getting my 200 reps up, whether I'm playing like crap or I'm playing really, really well. So we try to build that competitiveness and that mindset with our culture. So our culture that we built doesn't allow for, at the higher levels, doesn't allow for what I call fakers. Like, there's a lot of guys that have come in and trained with us that I like as people, but they don't really want to get after it every day. They don't really want to hear somebody tell them like, yo, you're not playing well today. You're going to let this guy blow by you. You're going to do this. And so they don't come in as much, you know? So we kind of weed all that out. And the guys who are like, yo, I don't care what level I'm at. I don't care if it's high school, college, pro, I'm trying to kill everybody in my way. Those are the people that kind of stay in our gym at the highest level. And it's kind of filtered down to the younger levels too, where now our high school guys that are in there are seeing our older guys, how they work, how their mindset is. And then it filters down on a lesser scale to our younger players as we're trying to help them learn how to be competitive and handle adversity.
Yeah, that's an awesome point right there. Very, very good. All right, so what now? I'm gonna bring up my slide, but change something just a little bit.
Yeah.
What should parents, you know, seek in a quality trainer as they go? Because everybody can't get the Dags. So, what would be something that a player that a parent who's looking for their you know, their 13, 14, 15-year-old to get involved? What should it be what's some keys they should look into a trainer? Look at
So I would say 2 things. One is its separate segment, and I've built my business on these 2 things: honesty and value. So I don't think in youth sports there's a lot of honesty, because especially as a business model, the more honest you are with people, the less most of them, the less they're gonna come to you. But in the long run, you're gonna help people when you're more honest with them. So we use honesty, which players and parents don't always like, and then value. So if you're going to come and you're going to pay X amount of dollars, you're going to be in the gym for an hour. We don't want to waste your money. We don't want to waste your time. So any program that we put out, there's honesty in it and there's value in it. And that honesty comes from our experience. I can't tell you the amount of delusion. I mean, you know, but the delusion in youth sports that's out there. And then on top of it, when players come to us, like we just had this at our camp with one of our players that worked for us. He's a high school player, and he was working on our camp, but he trains with a couple other people. And I mean, we had Joe Cremo was there. I was there. Bryce Waterman, who's been through it, who's in middle college, like all these guys were there. And he was saying stuff. And we're all like, yo, like, I don't know what people are telling you, but it's straight up. And it's not like that. The kid's a good player. He's going to be a good player, but it's just, so we hear so much of that. And we're lucky that with the people that we surround our players with and our coaches, that usually when parents and players come into our gym with delusion, they're in there for one session. We don't buy into it. And then we don't really see them again. You know what I mean? So it's better that way. So I would just, again, like simple mindset for a parent. How can your kid get better today? Especially when they're in middle school, it's not about the basketball. No one's getting a scholarship in middle school. It's about building life skills. Can you commit to something? Can you be self-disciplined? Can you handle adversity? Can you hold yourself accountable? Your fitness, right? Are you working as hard as you can in those sessions? Then as you grow and you get to high school, you'll start seeing, okay, I'm a pretty good player. Now I need to do X, Y, and Z. just to be a good high school player, right? And then if you produce in high school, you'll have a chance to go to college. So that's how we kind of see everything. Like, you know, there's just so much delusion. I think that's the biggest thing that we combat from the outside looking in, from parents, players, from other trainers. But I always say this too, like, you know, if the kid's in the gym, it doesn't matter who they're with. Like if you like them, and that's, I just struggle with, you know, some parents send their kids to certain trainers, whether it's here or anywhere, and they're not necessarily doing the right things and not giving them that honesty and providing them the right mindset. And the kid doesn't end up doing well, and the parent's mad. But I mean, it's the choice that you make. And I know I'm talking a lot, but the last thing too is I always say this to our parents, and they always get kind of like confused by it. I would love for people to come to us 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, I'd be living in a mansion if that happened. You know what I mean? But I always say in our groups, if you come to me once a week, you have a workout for the rest of the week, especially the people that I've seen multiple times. Like I worked myself out. So like when the kids are young, I like the fact that they go to different people, they hear different voices. But as you get older, it should be one person, one voice, and then you're doing the rest on your own.
Right.
You know, and like, so like during COVID, I wasn't really working guys out. Like, to me, the best gift I gave Joe Cremo and August Mahoney and like even like Elijah Burns when he got back is I gave him the key to my gym in Schenectady. Like, go ahead, go work. You guys don't need me. And we've been working out for 3 years. You know what I mean? So I think that's the other thing. Everybody's in such a search to find a trainer. It's like, if you can build into your child, your son or your daughter, for them to go out and work on their own, that's really where they're going to take their game to the next level.
Yeah. No question about it. All right. You mentioned, you know, the USA team and everything.
Yeah.
I know you don't really care about this, but name some of the, you already named a few, name some of the players that you have worked out with, some notable names. And I know you don't care about that, but sometimes the eye candy, the parents, oh, he worked with him, amigo, you know what I mean? So just give me a couple names.
I mean, locally, Kevin Herter, who's with the Atlanta Hawks. We also did pre-draft last year during COVID for Elijah Hughes from Syracuse, who's with the Utah Jazz. Nathan Knight, who's another, who's a kid who played at William and Mary. He's with the Hawks as well too. I just actually did this weekend, Joe Cremo, who is one of our guys, UAlbany and Villanova. He signed with an agency a couple months ago. He's actually going over to Spain to play. Their agency brought their 10 pros over. So guys that played at Washington State, at NC State, at Cal, like big programs, they were all up here training. Andrew Platek from University of North Carolina, Jordan King, who is one of my favorite just because of, you know, nobody was looking for him, similar to me. And now he's turned himself into like a really, really good Division I player. Boo Buie from Northwestern. Man, I know I'm going to be Jalen Pickett, who's at Penn State. I know I'm going to be forgetting a bunch of guys. They're going to get pissed at me. But typically, any of the Division I guys that go away at the highest level, when they're back home, they're in the gym. Elijah Burns, who's going back in Hungary this year to play too. So they're usually in our gym competing. And then we got all the prep guys. So the guys that are at prep school when they come home. Yeah, and the ladies too. So, you know, Megan Herter, Liv Olson, the Phillips twins who are off to college, Abby Ray, who's at UAlbany. We had a really good group of women that were in this past spring too. So yeah, typically anybody that's really looking to challenge themselves, you can usually find them in our gym.
Yeah, you mentioned that wasn't one of my questions, but since you brought up, you mentioned women, the girls or whatever. Do you change your training, or did you see something different in the girls and from the boys, or is it just the same?
It's a little different in the fact that like the women listen way more. So like you can add more layers to what you're teaching with the women because they'll pick it up faster. The other thing that we try to do is in the women's game, it's a little more structured from youth all the way up. So it's like the opposite of the men, right? The men, you throw them in AAU, they're up and down the court going crazy. So what we try to do is unstructure them a little bit and get them playing a little more ISO one-on-one, get them a little more shifty with their ball handling, get them different finishes. so that when they do go back into the structured environment, they have a little bit more shiftiness and wiggle to them, you know? So that's the only thing that changes. But I mean, the intensity doesn't change. Our mindset doesn't change. Not at all.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. So tell me, what are the pros and the cons that you see work with these youth for so many years now? What are pros and cons with this generation that we seeing now?
Yeah. So they've like kept me young as I've started to get older. Just staying on top of, I never want to be the guy like this generation, and then just, it's all like negative. It's more so I'm learning from them so that I can adjust how I communicate with them and relate to them. I think the competitiveness is not naturally built in. So we have to build it into our workouts to make sure that like that's a skill that these players have to work on. So we intentionally work on that. Handling adversity, I think with especially the better players with social media and just there's so many different opinions in their ears at all times that we need to make sure like, hey, it's okay if you fail. You need to move on as quickly as possible. You need to learn how to handle adversity. So like even in our shooting drills, like, I remember when Jordan was in, this is before he went to Siena. And I mean, I was crushing him with just, he wasn't shooting it well. And then he thought he beat a drill. And then I'd add another part to the drill and he's getting pissed. And at the end of the day, it's like, yo, that's how you build adversity. So you can be pissed at me for a day, and then we're back at it tomorrow. So I think it's a lot of mindset. I think I've said this for a while, obviously there's people making money with, in youth sports, with tournaments, with training, with clubs, like all this stuff. Like if you really wanted to impact kids and make some money doing it, the next big wave has to be for players and parents, sports psychologists. Like the parents need it, the players need it, coaches need it, I need it, everybody needs it. I mean, it's just gotten so delusional and crazy that, I've been talking about connecting with a good sports psychologist and figuring out, hey, how do we implement that into our programming or maybe get them working with some of the clubs, because I think it can just benefit these players from handling, like I used to go to the Y and play. I couldn't imagine, going back on Twitter after and then having to see something about me. You know what I mean? Or see somebody say something, or somebody's, DMing me, like stuff like that. Like I'd be even more pissed than I was if I lost, So, those are kind of the new wave things. And you're trying to focus on mental health and give kids solutions to, just being a better version of themselves.
Right. They're staying off Xbox and video games and more into playing might help. I'm the old guy on the lawn too, so I do that a lot.
It's just like, it's so hard too, right? Like I remember I was never a video game guy, but my brother was, and just being like, dude, you're like wasting your time. Like, you got to be getting yourself ready for, as he's like getting older, like, oh, you got to get a job and this. And now it's like the kids come back like, yo, this guy won $3 million in the Xbox tournament. And I'm like, oh crap. Right. But it is, that's another thing too. Even with my kids, I see it, they're on their phone all the time, and just limit the screen time and go do something,
Yeah. All right. So I got one last question here before we let you go. You might have heard this phrase. I'm just going to see if you know it when I say it. Not even a phrase, just a couple words. Hoopers versus ball players. Have you heard that yet?
Yes.
It was a comment. I think it was Rashad Phillips. He had a comment on Twitter. Yeah. And just give me your thoughts on that, on those words real quick. Hoopers versus ball players. Just give me your initial thoughts when you heard that.
Yeah, I just think in like a broader sense, when I hear that, I just think there's like, I always think about it in like an elite basketball term, right? So like there's guys that like a hooper just goes and gets you a bucket. Like I've always said this, like Mark Lyons to me is a hooper. You throw that dude in any league, because I follow European basketball time, and he's the leading scorer. I don't know if he's the hardest worker. I don't know if he fits into any system, but I know this: you hire that dude on your team, he's going to be the leading scorer and he's going to get you wins. So like I look at like that conversation of like guys like that where like you can drop them in any scenario and they're going to be fine. And on the flip side, you have guys that, you know, that need a system, or they may not be able to get you a bucket on every possession, but they're moving the ball. They're moving it, you know, like, you know, Kev's a good example of that too in Atlanta. Like Trey's a hooper. You put Trey anywhere and he's going to get buckets. And Kev, like the great thing about Kev is that he doesn't need the ball to be successful, you know? And so, you know, you can put him on the court with anybody. You put him on with Lou Will, you put him on with Trey, you put him on with Bogey. Like, he's going to make shots. He's getting to the paint and scoring. He's going to make the extra pass. So I always kind of look at it like that from like the elite terms, as like, there's just guys where I always laugh at these coaches like, oh, play the right way. Like, what does that mean? Like, I'm watching, you know, Iona like doesn't guard. They just go up and down the court crazy, and they've won how many like MAC tournaments in a row, you know, versus like a school that like passes, plays the right way, and they haven't won anything in years, you know? So
right.
Yeah, we have guys like that too. Like, we got to get out of our own head sometimes with like this whole playing the right way thing. And there's just guys that they produce. When I was playing in Italy, they had a saying, it was like a domenica, which is basically like on Sunday or at Sunday. And Sunday is when we used to play. And so like, doesn't matter what you did in practice all week, if you don't produce on Sunday, you're gonna get released, you know. And there were guys that you're like, man, like, shouldn't that guy be working harder? And then he comes up on Sunday and he gets it done. So, you know, that's kind of how I look at it. I don't have a preference either way, as long as you're a good teammate and a good player, you know, and you're doing the right things and you're not like ruining the locker room, then don't matter to me. Just produce, baby. You know.
That's right. That's right.
What do you think about it?
Well, you know, hoopers, like you said, you can put them anywhere, drop them in the desert somewhere. Them guys gonna ball out. I think ball players are the people that are just fundamentally sound, that make the right keys all the time, high IQ. Not that the hoopers are not high IQ. I'm just saying that the guys take care of the ball, they value the ball, those type of things. You know, I think both are needed. Both can excel. Both can be all-stars. Both can be all-time greats. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think it's more of a taste. You know what I mean? But what you said there was just right on point. I do have one last question, though. You mentioned Herder. What are some of the things that you're going to work on with Herder over the offseason, and some things that he can improve on? I mean, I thought he had a great season. And so what things are you going to be working on him with?
He had an awesome season. I mean, he made a big step forward this year, just even defensively. Like, he guards way better one-on-one, which I think is huge for his career. We're going to try to refine his shot a little bit, not really tweak anything, but just simplify it. So I'm actually going down there in 2 weeks or so for 4 or 5 days. So we'll work on that. And then he'll be back up here like a week later working on stuff. So we're going to really, the number one thing is just refining his shot. Simplify it a little bit, make sure his mechanics are tight. And then we always are working on, like, you know, he's doing a good job of getting to the rim now. He's a really good 2-point scorer, like mid-range. He's making shots and stuff. So just getting a little better off his 1-foot finishes, because everything right now is basically like off of 2 feet. But I think I'm also big into, you don't want to throw too many things at a guy. Otherwise, you're not going to get good at anything. So shooting, number one. We'll obviously do some ball handling. We'll do some finishing, but we're going to really lock in on the on his shooting technique and his shooting form.
Okay. So what's the last thing? What is next for Dags, man? I mean, you're doing pretty much everything you want. What's new on the horizon? What you got cooking before we get out of here?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I always got like a couple hands in like different pots and trying to check stuff out. I'll tell you what kind of has me hyped up is, you know, I've been watching this the TBT. Have you been watching it at all?
No, I usually do, but I haven't been watching it. What round are they in right now?
So they're in the championship now. It's Team 23, who I think they're from like out west. But there's a guy who's playing it at Marcus Hall. He's the point guard of Team 23, who I played against my first year in Italy, like 13 years ago, and this dude's still killing. Yeah. And so they play Boeheim's Army. So they play Syracuse. I think tomorrow for the $1 million, but you know, everybody's hitting me up. They're like, yo, you got to put a team in. You got to put a team in. So I think I might look into, you know, maybe trying to find a sponsor and figuring out a way to to maybe get some of these high level European players over here and try to make a run for that thing. So that's got me excited. I think it would be good for like the area too and all that.
That'd be awesome.
It would be sick. But man, you know what? And the other thing too is I'm looking forward to high school season starting back up so I can watch more of your videos, man. Start watching some of these players, because the kids start saying stuff on Twitter about how well they did. I gotta go check their film out to make sure it's sense. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, we can't wait to get back out there either, man. Hopefully we get to go live. We're still working on getting our equipment to go live, because that's our next step for us. But
awesome.
we've been working on it. But hopefully our fingers crossed, we get all we need to get that going. But we appreciate you, Coach Dags, man, and we wish you a continued success over there, and keep doing your thing, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Take care.